One was going to be servant to the younger one. Esau's the older one. He is supposed to be servant to Jacob. Yet here in chapter 36, man, Esau is the one that's just growing and getting wealthy and everything's going great. And Jacob, well, not so much, as we see later. In fact, let's look at what really is. And we're going to contrast Jacob and Esau here together. First of all, the stature of their families is very, very different. Esau is powerful. He has 5 sons, 10 grandsons. Eventually, he overthrew the inhabitants of Seir and took over that, according to Deuteronomy 2, in verses 12 and 23. Jacob, on the other hand, he's weak. He has 12 sons, but as we've seen, they're controlled by fear. They're big people. They're dynamic people, but they're cowards. They're not doing much. They're just kind of there. The stature of their family is very, very different. But the stability of their family is also contrasted here. Esau, his family is a settled, dominating nation. We see that here. We see that here over and over in this chapter. In verse 1, and in verse 8, which we didn't read, in verse 31, and in verse 34. They have become a nation. They have become a very strong nation, a very powerful nation out of one family. These guys were the toughest guys on the block. They were very well organized. They were very strong. Everything that the ancient world had to offer, they were able to do and dominate and take over. What about Jacob? Well, Jacob, they're sojourners. They're strangers. They just kind of are wandering about. Well, they're not necessarily homeless, but they lived in 5 different places in 5 months. They're just kind of all over the place. They're not settled. There's no roots. There's no strong foundation. Yet God promised that Jacob's house was going to rule Esau's house, but we're not seeing this. But I'd also like you to look at the stability of the family. We looked at the stability. Now look at the cohesion of the family. There we go. Esau is a cohesive unit established by a single ruler. In verses 1 through 8. The family begins in Canaan. In verses 9 through 19 of this chapter, they're settled and organized in Seir. In verse 15, they have civil government established. In verses 20 through 30, they face competition, but they take over that competition. In verses 31 through 39, they become a monarchy. And they're the top level. They are the top group on the block. They are the number one company. They are there. It is them and then everybody else. I don't know if you saw in the Olympics some of those races of different sporting events. I can't remember which one it was, but there was this one where there was one person way, way out ahead, and then everyone else was battling for second and third. And it wasn't even close. That's kind of how it was with Esau's family. They set up, they were very well organized. They set up administration and districts, and they had great level. Well, what about Jacob? Treachery, disrespect. We saw what happened with Reuben. Saw what happened with the other brothers and how they slaughtered. You had infighting. You had fragmentation. They were a complete mess.